Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. You can follow me on socials at MLUpod, and you can subscribe to the monthly My Little Underground email newsletter, and that's over at peteraradio.com/newsletter. Today on the show, we're talking about games. That's right, another gaming episode of the show, and specifically, we're going to talk about one of my favorite networks ever that has just relaunched late last year. I'm talking, of course, about G4. And G4, for those of you who don't know, G4 TV was the first entire TV network dedicated to gaming. Yes, they had some tech stuff too, like screensavers, which became Attack of the Show. But for me, well, most of the network was about gaming, and that's why I watched it, was all the gaming shows. And we're going to talk a little bit about the original G4 lineup, some shows that I really enjoyed and watched the most out of all, and my thoughts on how the relaunch is going so far. So, way back. So, G4 as a TV network started out as, it was Tech TV, right? G4 was another company, and then Tech TV was its own thing. So some of the original programming from G4 was, Tech TV shows first, right? But then in 2004, Tech TV and G4 merged, right? Now, some of the shows on this original lineup that I absolutely loved is X-Play. And this is probably my favorite show out of the original G4 lineup. It was hosted by Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. And let me just say, these two are some of the best video game journalists, reporters, pundits, talking heads ever. And Adam Sessler is still going strong today, and we'll talk about the relaunch of G4 and X-Play later on today. So glad that Adam Sessler is still a part of that. But originally X-Play was just overall just phenomenal TV show. As far as, getting to know all of the new games that are coming out, and yeah, they will review the games, and I didn't care so much about what score they gave the games. I just wanted to know what games are out. If a game got a 4 out of 5, was I inclined to give it a try? Sure, but if it was like a real-time strategy game that they gave a 4 because they gave some of those games 4s or 5s even, I still wouldn't care because I don't play those games. But anyway, so X-Play was interesting because Adam and Morgan had very good chemistry, and the format of the show was interesting because they had a lot of in-depth but very brief reviews, and one game Adam would review and another game Morgan would review. I love how they did it. And it was naturally funny. Like, the comedy between those two was just natural, especially Adam, because one, he's a funny guy, and he's a funny looking guy too, and he wasn't afraid until to this day. He's not afraid to make fun of himself. But overall, like later on, let's say like 2007, 2008, the show became less charismatic and more like a serious news show, and I hated it. And this is the time when I was not watching. I stopped watching G4 a lot because it started to change, not for the better, and I just hated it. it wasn't that good. But overall, X-Play was a very good show. It was very loose and relaxed and entertaining, and you got to know a little bit about not only the gaming industry, but what games are out there that were worth playing. Now, another great show from the initial G4 Tech TV lineup, if you will, was G4TV.com. And it was a roundtable discussion show hosted by Tina Wood, Laura Foy, and Jeff Keighley. And you might know Jeff because he produces the Video Game Awards till this day. And this was a very interesting show because it was like almost like, not Sports Center, a lot of those ESPN roundtable discussion shows It was kind of like that, but about video games, and they would interview game designers and stuff like that. It was very, very good. I loved it. And that's how I found out about Neo Geo. And I don't know if you old school gaming heads know about Neo Geo. It's this big behemoth portable gaming system. I think maybe early to mid 90s ish. And the console itself was very expensive, and the cartridges were incredibly expensive. And little things like that I found out about through G4TV.com and the rest of the original G4 lineup. And another one of my favorite shows on this network, and I recently went back and watched a whole bunch of episodes of the original G4 lineup, and that's Judgment Day. And here in the States, it aired on G4 as Judgment Day, but in Canada, it was known as Reviews on the Run. And it was originally a segment on a show that also aired on the original G4 lineup called Electric Playground, which featured hosts Victor Lucas and Tommy Tallarico. Now, this show had a similar format to X-Play, but their interviews were formatted differently in a unique fashion. Because what differed from X-Play is that Tommy and Victor gave different scores, and they reviewed the game together. X-Play, let's say Mario Kart Double Dash, Morgan would review, and let's say Halo 2, Adam Susser would review. You know what I mean? But with Judgment Day, it was Tommy and Victor would just review it and have like a quick back and forth discussion about the game, and they scored it differently. But in X-Play, they had one score. Like when you watch the review of, again, Mario Kart Double Dash, I don't know why that game is in my head, but X-Play would give one universal score, 4 or 5 out of 5 or whatever it is. And that's another difference between X-Play and Judgment Day. X-Play, the game, it was scored out of 5, and Judgment Day was out of 10. And with Judgment Day, they will get into specific details. Like after they would review the game, and Tommy and Victor would give their scores, they would say what they liked about it specifically and what they hated. So they would review it, and then they would summarize their review, if that makes any sense. It was very cool. And this was another naturally funny show. These two had very good chemistry together, and the jokes weren't forced. And I find myself dying laughing watching these reviews and learning a little bit about game design and gaming and what games were coming out. And that leads me to my next point, because what made Judgment Day so different and very enjoyable to watch was they didn't just review the new games that were out, right? So they had a segment called Buried Treasures where Tommy or Victor would go at the time EB Games or whatever, and they would find like a game that probably got a lot of critical acclaim or didn't sell very well, or would just kind of flew under the radar out of most of the rest of the industry or whatever. Like it wasn't talked about as much as whatever the popular game was out. I really liked it because till this day I still like going to vintage game stores and finding buried treasures, so to speak, that I didn't get to play or buy when the game came out, and hopefully the game is at a decent price, and not like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if you guys are familiar with that game. It's on consoles is worth a crazy amount, and even when the time that the game came out, it was priced as like a new release game, even though the game has been out for years already. But anyway, Judgment Day, they also reviewed hardware like controllers, and when I was a kid, let's say I had a PS2, and again, the PS2's hardware wasn't the greatest, right? So our controllers, because we would play it a lot, would break easy, and we were always in the market for buying new controllers. This is before video game controllers cost $60-$50, right? PS2 controller will cost you maybe like $20-$30. But again, they would always break or something will happen, using it too much. And I would always like to know what other kind of controllers are out there that I can buy. But they would talk about a lot of third-party controllers, but again, I've always had bad luck with third-party controllers on PS2 specifically. But anyway, I liked how Judgment Day would do that kind of thing, because there's more to gaming than just the games. There's the hardware that you play the games on and the materials that you use to operate it, like the controller, or maybe like an extra, like an expansion to the multi-pack for the PS2 or whatever, a certain headset for playing Xbox Live or whatever, fancy keyboards, stuff like that. It was really cool. So yeah, Judgment Day, one of the best shows on G4, along with the other two that I named. X-Play and G4TV.com, some of the best shows. But as a whole, the network did a great job at covering E3. And for those who don't know, E3 is like the big gaming convention every year, right? And I didn't know jack shit about this convention until I started watching G4. And again, when G4 was out and I was watching a lot, I didn't have a computer, so I didn't have readily access to the internet like we do now. So I didn't know anything about anything, especially stuff that's happening in the gaming industry. My only foray into what was happening within the gaming world was through PlayStation Magazine. But G4 kind of helped expand my point of view and my perception of what was happening in gaming and what games were coming out. And I think G4 did a hell of a job at putting us, the viewers at home, at E3. Because I don't know about now, but I'm guessing that E3 was very, if you were in the industry or you were covering the industry, you were going to E3. I don't know to this day what, do you have to have credentials? Is it open to the public? I still don't know that to this day. I never looked into it. But G4 did a great job of putting me there and showing us what was on the floor and what games we should look out for. And it really got me excited about the new games that were coming out. Because new games cost a lot of money. At the time, $49.99 was not, it was not cheap, So it was good to know to see what games are coming out and if they were worth my money or not. And, more so on the E3 coverage, a lot of the hosts from the different shows came together and they would interview people in the industry and they would play demos of the games and they would talk to the other people on the floor and ask them what they thought about the games that were coming out and all the demos. It was really good. You didn't see stuff like that, especially about gaming on TV, right? And, unfortunately, G4 shut down in 2014. Like I said earlier, there was a lot of programming changes to G4. A lot of the great shows kind of just went away or got canceled. There's G4TV.com just kind of disappeared one day. Judgment Day stopped airing in the States. G4 stopped carrying it. They would play it in Canada only. Cinematech vanished and all these other shows just went away. And then there was barely any video game programming on TV. I remember maybe in the late 2000s, maybe 2007, when G4 was kind of going downhill, they would have a gaming tournament on CBS or something like that. But there was not a huge presence of video game programming on TV after G4 started, fading out or going away. But however, with the rise of, the internet, there was a lot of different types of, content creators that emerged to kind of sort of fill the gap between, fill the hole that G4 left when it kind of went away. And then there was Rev3 Games for a little while that Adam Sessler served as producer and host on the channel for a little while. And till this day, there's Gamerangs, which is really good. They do light reviews. They don't actually score games. They just kind of do what they call it before you buy. And they tell you what's up with the game before you actually buy it, which is really cool. And Electric Playground is still going strong on YouTube with Victor Lucas. And there is Video Game Donkey, which I still watch a whole lot of today. A very humorous but very intellectual insight on the gaming world. Highly recommended. The humor may not be for everybody, but I find it very entertaining. So that brings me to the relaunch of G4 as a network, and it's interesting because G4 is coming into the relaunching itself into the internet world. So they also have a very immense presence on Twitch and YouTube. That's how I watch G4 primarily on YouTube. And what's interesting about G4 now, they have a lot of new faces, right? You got Austin Creed, who is Xavier Woods on WWE. You got Frost, Black Okage, and Gerard the Completionist. They're all great and they're all awesome. And what's interesting is like there's more, women and people of color on here, because earlier on, G4 was very white. It was, I'm going to call it spade a spade. I loved G4. I still love G4. I still like those old shows. But, there wasn't a whole lot of representation going on. But now there is, which is amazing. And it's great to see a familiar face like Adam Sussler, who is still doing X-Play. And, let me back up a little bit. So the G4, right, to the relaunch, like it launched, I would say, again, late last year, 2021, like November-ish. I don't have traditional cable, so I don't know what channel specifically, and I've been digging through the new G4 website to find out what channel it's on specifically for all you people who still have cable. It's on Fios, Cox, and Infinity TV if you have that, but it's also on Twitch and YouTube, which is a lot of, I think that, we'll talk about it a little bit, especially the new X-Play. I think it's formatted for an internet YouTube audience. I don't think it's kind of formatted for television. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But just watching it, because watching the new G4 programming and watching the original stuff, because again, like the original X-Play and like Judgment Day, for example, the reviews are in depth, but they were quick. They weren't rushed. It was just quick. Maybe they're trying to get as much as they can before commercial break-in. But now that's not the case. Right now, I know G4 it's on TV, so I'm not sure how that's formatted, so to speak. But like the programming I see on YouTube or what they put from Twitch, it looks like it's formatted like a regular YouTube channel, which is it's interesting. You have to evolve with the times. I guess is there what they're doing, but so the new X-Play specifically, It kind of has a new format because you have the reviews are kind of split. There's some reviews that are split up between the hosts. Like Adam will take one part, and then another host would review another part, and then at the end there'll be like a roundtable discussion about the review that just take place. To me, some of these reviews feel kind of bloated. Like one review for one single game will take over 20 minutes, even a half hour for one game. I think that is a lot. Again, I don't know if they're formatting this for like they used to, like on TV. Like you'll have one game, then commercial break, then they'll come back and review another game, then commercial break, then they'll review another game, or they review two games before they go to commercial. I'm not sure how they're doing it now because it's all new, so things might change, but I think just 20 some odd minutes is a lot for just one game. And of course, you add in the discussion at the end. Like, it's just, I just heard you talk for like 20 minutes about this game, and then you gotta talk some more about the game you just talked about, I think that the roundtable discussions should kind of be like its own show, kind of like G4TV.com. I'm not saying to reboot that show. I'm just saying like it should be like reviews and discussions should be like split to be their own programming, if that makes any sense. Okay, the comedy, right? Listen. One of the best things about the original G4 shows, like X-Play and Judgment Day, was that it was naturally funny. it wasn't forced. Like, now I'm watching some of the, like, especially the trailer that they put out for the relaunch. The comedy was just the worst. It was not funny. It just came off, man. And I'm seeing some clips of from Attack of the Show, and some of the jokes on there are just horrendous. And I've always thought that about Attack of the Show, but this was like way more cheesy than the original show. It's no, just come on. Some of it is still funny, but again, the one thing I didn't like about G4 towards the end, especially X-Play, it was that all the character and charisma of the show was totally gone. And this new G4, it's not like that. It's very lighthearted. It's very loose and relaxed. But the thing is, some of the comedy is very hit or miss. Again, if there's something to make fun of it. But make sure some of these jokes, again, they just come across as very forced and kind of like filtered through a writer's room. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel natural to me. Yeah, but again, the positives about the relaunch is, well, I love the new faces, and a lot of these historical retrospectives are just extraordinary. Like the Secretish History of Halo, amazing. Adam Sessler did it. I highly recommend watching that. It's brilliant. Again, I think stuff like that should be its own show. Like Icons was another great G4 show back in the day. It would be like mini documentaries about important aspects of gaming, important people in gaming, certain moments in games, like the launch of Xbox, the launch of, or the rise and fall of the Dreamcast and stuff like that. I want to see more things like that on the new G4. Yeah, but they do have a lot of new programming, which is kind of cool. They have, Boosted, which has an esports focus, and I'm interested in esports. I watched a lot of those MLG tournaments from back in the day, and that's really cool. Esports has become huge. The Overwatch tournament was at the Barclays Center a few years back. It's crazy. And Super Smash Brothers is still going on, and still having tournaments for that, which is really cool. And before the new Halo, before Guardians came out, when Halo 5 was on and popping, they had tournaments all over the world for that. So I'm excited to see what the new G4 is going to do with all of that. And also on the new X-Play, they also have videos about, like, not just reviews, but within the reviews, they're kind of structured. Some of them are like almost like hot takes. Like I just watched is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy the best Uncharted? And it was the review of The Lost Legacy, which is it was kind of cool how they did it. The original X-Play didn't do reviews kind of like that. So again, it's a new era, and they're yes, it is a reboot of X-Play, but it's like almost like a new show with some of the old things still there. Like the scoring structure is still out of 5. So I've added it still feels like X-Play, but it's like X-Play 2.0, which is good. So going forward, I think the new G4 should knock off the stupid, corny comedy. Maybe I have a high standard of humor, but a lot of the humor on the new X-Play, maybe I shouldn't say a lot. Some of it just comes across as cheesy and just, oh my god, like you just want to shut it off and not watch it. Just like do something else. Again, I think a lot of the programming should be separated, right? So you do reviews, then you have your hot takes, and you have your discussion about it. As far as X-Play is concerned, or the rest of the programming on G4. But again, I haven't seen the new G4 on like traditional television, so I'm not sure how it comes across there. Like, is X-Play still gonna be like a 30-minute show? Is it gonna be an hour-long show, or what? But that's fine. It's still this relaunch is still in its early phases, so the sky's the limit for it. I'm just glad that there is another gaming network out there, like an entire network dedicated to video games, because the gaming, since G4 kind of disappeared, the gaming industry, and gaming itself became larger and more popular, which is great. So now a G4 has been needed for a long time. I'm glad there's a lot of other kinds of content creators that came along the way to kind of elevate what G4 started. But I'm glad that G4 is back, and I hope for the best. Just again, knock off the cheesy comedy, and that's all. I'm Peter A. Thanks for listening to My Little Underground. You can follow me on the socials at MLUPod, and don't forget to subscribe to the monthly My Little Underground email newsletter. And that's on peteraradio.com/newsletter. All right, later days.